Forum request this evening, so at this time I would like to call on Mr. Al Frank. Please come to the podium and address the council. Good evening and thank you for being here.
Pardon me?
Good evening and thank you for being here.
Okay. I've got 3 minutes. I may go a couple of seconds over. I would ask for indulgence on that, but I think I can do it in 3. Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Al Frank. I live at 1209 South Concord Street, Fergus Falls, Minnesota. I'm a 51-year resident of Fergus Falls. I've got 40 years in the field of law enforcement. I noticed on your agenda, your first page says invocation, pledge of allegiance, call to order, roll call, approval of the agenda, and then you go into 52 pages of business. On the 52nd page, the very last page, you put swearing in of new council members and then some more business. I would like to address that. I'm here to address City Code 31.25, which says, at its first regular meeting in January, the council shall, not may, not at whim, but shall, in the order herein stated, and prior to the commencing of its regular order of business, reorganized by giving the oath of office to the new officers and council members, and seat all new council members. The city's own website states that the terms of the 3 outgoing council people are from January 2019 to December 2022. It's now 2023, and their term has expired. So consequently, technically, they are no longer city council members. I understand that the city attorney has an opinion on this, and I've read the same email that you folks have read. And to paraphrase that long email, it says, as long as he can remember. Well, his memory is of no consequence. Your rule of 31.25, however, is of consequence. He also referred to the current council, the new council, in that email, replying that the old council is still the current council. According to your own website, that is incorrect. Their terms ended December 2022. So if I were to use that as an example, so everybody can understand where I'm coming from on this, the city attorney represents the city. Part of that representation is to prosecute criminal cases. If I were a defendant being charged at 9 miles over the speed limit, and I got up and my defense was, yeah, but as far as I can remember, I've always gone 10 miles over the speed limit. What kind of reaction would that prosecutor have? So by not following your rule of 31.25, you are circumventing the will of the people who elected the new members. The people elected them because they disagreed with the old business of the old council and wanted to go in a different direction and not stay in that old direction. That's why they were elected. That takes care of it in a nutshell. Thank you, and what say you, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Thank you. I guess.
One of the issues here is the transition from old council to new council is usually done with a meeting that concludes sine die, which means that we have concluded our deliberative session, and now it's time for the new deliberative body to take its turn. And when you look at the language you quoted, Mr. Frank, it says at its first meeting. I interpret that as the new council's first meeting. So this deliberative body can call its meeting, and it can take an action and adjourn, sine die, and turn the entire agenda over to the new council if it so chooses. But we do not go without a council. We go, you're right that the terms are, for a 4-year term, but the charter contemplates that they continue to serve until the new officials are qualified and sworn into office. And that's because we don't go without a council. If there was an emergency a couple days ago, what would we do? We have to be able to call a council. So the action available to the council tonight is to call the meeting, take whatever action it deems appropriate, because the council has broad and impressive powers when it's meeting on a quorum, when the 8 of you are together, and you can simply take whatever action you think is appropriate.
Could you get closer to the mic so we can hear you?
Or you can take an action to adjourn sine die. And sine die means to turn the reins over to the next deliberative body. It's you have those powers.
So I think that we will allow the council to determine that when we call roll at 5:30. I just want to make a couple points, and then the council will be able to have that thing. First of all, the agenda has been presented to the public. We were very clear at the last public meeting that this council would be concluding the business that has started. Some of the work on that agenda started all the way back in July. We were very clear to the public that we would be completing that that business as presented in the agenda that was presented to the public. Finally, make it perfectly clear that there is nothing on the agenda that the old council, under the portion of the old council, that cannot be immediately revoked, overturned, or changed by the new council once they are sworn in and duly seated. So the public just needs to recognize there's no conspiracy here. There's not, we're not trying to subvert the will of the people. We're doing things the way we said that we would be doing them, and we're following through with that. So the new council has an agenda before them that's been presented to the public. It's up to them whether or not they want to adjourn sine die once the roll is called here in a few minutes. So we'll take it up at 5:30. Thanks. Region Healthcare Chaplain leads us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, we thank you for today and the many blessings it contains. Another day in which we have the privilege to glorify you through serving others. We thank you for our city government and the men and women that serve. Another day to live out their calling into vocational leadership on our behalf, for our family, friends, and community. Father, we thank you for entrusting them with this high calling. May they seek to honor you with their words, their actions, and their plans. Tonight as we gather, may we recenter ourselves and refocus ourselves on the tasks set before us. May we take this opportunity to learn. Open our minds and our hearts to receive what you have for us tonight, giving us wisdom and discernment in when to act, when to stay still. May this meeting strengthen us as individuals, as a council, and as a city, and may we be encouraged, stretched, and challenged, and inspired. Lord, we pray for unity in our purpose. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is 5:30, January 3rd, 2023, and I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item of business is approval of the agenda.
I think in light of the request that just came on 3124, do we want to talk about that now before we approve the agenda?
Yeah, if anyone...
That would dictate where the agenda goes, that's all.
Yep. Yeah, I think that now would be, if there's a motion to approve the agenda, we can have the discussion. If the motion passes, if it fails.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second. So the motion is to approve the agenda that has been presented to the public. Any discussion on that?
Obviously, I would like to talk about 3125.
Yeah, please do.
Yep. I mean, obviously, in light of what Mr. Frank has brought up, obviously, we've all got the language in front of us, and it says at its first regular meeting in January, and I would concur that this is the first regular meeting in January. When you look at, today, in Washington and St. Paul, was a lot of Congress and senators that got appointed, and, they didn't have a transitional day. So, the federal government can do that transition, and, the state government can do that. And so I would ask that we review the language, and it's, to some extent, I don't know what's less clear than at its first regular meeting in January, the council shall in order herein stated and prior to commencing its regular order of business, recognized by having all new officers and officials take and subscribe their oath of office. I think it's fairly clear in that language, and we have done this before, when the language has been challenged in that. And we obviously haven't. I talked to Andrew about this on Friday, and the Charter Commission is looking at this language to basically make it clearer. But I think as it sits today, I don't know if this is not the first regular meeting in January, then I think we should have posted it as differently. And I don't think there's anything on the agenda that at some point you have to have the transition from obviously one council to the next council in terms of its membership. And I don't know how do we define that line as such. I mean, but as I said, kind of like most of other government is changing. They changed this morning. They didn't change, it wasn't like Senator Engelbretson went and did a day in St. Paul, and then at 5 o'clock tonight he handed the reins over to Jordan Rasmussen. Jordan Rasmussen was sworn in this morning and took on business today, regardless of what was old business that was addressed by the old council.
Thanks, Andy.
So I would propose that we move the agenda around and do the sine die and let the new council be seated.
Sure. I think you make some good points, and I want to just acknowledge the fact that the language is certainly anything but clear as far as the way we've been conducting business, the way we've told the public that we've been conducting business. At our last meeting of this council, we clearly told the public that we would be, if you remember, there was certain items on the agenda that we said, no, that is something for the new council. That is new business that the new council should take. The business on the agenda, we clearly could have accomplished that business December 31st. We put it on a regular agenda that's presented to the public in an orderly procedure that we would be completing that business. I also want to address the Charter Commission that you brought up, because you're right. I think the Charter Commission is where this should be decided. They are not an elected body. There's no political interest on that body, as there are between elected officials. And the Charter Commission, the chair of the Charter Commission on Friday said in a response to City Hall, we have discussed this issue in the past. I think the feeling of this group was the old council starts the meeting conducting any old business, and then the transfer to the new council begins, which is the way that we're outlined it. It's the way the agenda presented to the public says it. We will bring this item up at our meeting in April and lay out a more definitive process. I think that's the way to go. And again, I just want to clearly articulate, because you're right. There's nothing on this agenda. It can't be accomplished by the new council. It's simply that we have laid out a process to the public of how we're going to conduct our business. I think it's important that we follow that we be transparent to the public. And again, clearly, anything on this agenda, there's not one item that can't be overturned by the new council once they're sworn in and duly taken their seats. So with that, if there's any other discussion, we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
That motion carries. Under public hearings this evening, we have a public hearing for consideration of Ordinance 34, 8th Series, which is required shoreline management, ordinance updates. That just needs to be introduced this evening. And we need to have it doesn't need to be introduced, we need to have a public hearing. So, someone like to introduce the public hearing? Clara, could you please give an overview of this item before we open the public hearing? Good evening, Clara.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. This is coming back to your attention. We've been discussing this for several months now, but the DNR has required some updates be made to our shoreline management code. The language is before you in your packet. It has been looked over now also by the DNR. Any comments that they have made have been added as well. And Also, from the DNR is that we do need to hold a public hearing to ensure that the public has a chance to weigh in on the language. Just as a background, what we are updating is to include all water bodies over a certain size within current city limits, and I do have a map available if you do want to see what all of those water bodies are. But we've been annexing land over the years that contain bodies of water that our city ordinance needs to account for. We now have a map showing exactly what those bodies of water are, which are also reflected in the code update. Also reflected in the code update are height limits of buildings, which are 30 feet. That's where we have, that's in our zoning code. That's now reflected also in shoreline management. We are also redesignating, in partnership with the DNR, redesignating the Pisgah Reservoir from what was initially known as a natural development to general development. So natural meant that there was a setback of 150 feet. Now that we can call it a general development, the setback for building there is actually only 75 feet, so that gives us a little bit more wiggle room. So that was something really nice that the DNR is working on with us on. It also is updating our PUD section, planned unit development. This accomplishes a few things. It provides us with some more direction for developers if they're coming in and are interested in a planned unit development. It also removes the need for all of their plans to go to the DNR for approval, because our language is already inclusive of what they want to see, so therefore it just needs to go to the city engineer. It does not also need to go to the DNR for approval, so possibly saving some time down the road for some developers. So that's just kind of high level what the updates are in front of you. And as the mayor said, we do need to hold a public hearing on it, so if anyone has questions, comments, anything from the public, we will be happy to hear them.
Thank you, Claire. At this time, I would open the public hearing for Ordinance 34, 8th Series, which is required shoreline management ordinance updates. Anyone wishing to speak to this, please step to the lectern and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And at this point, it would be back to the council for a first reading of that
I
ordinance.
will introduce that, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Jim. There are no bids to award this evening under petitions and communications. We have a resolution recognizing the retirement of a longtime city employee. Whereas, I'm just going to read this resolution. Whereas Lori Besky has submitted her intent to retire effective December 30th, 2022, and whereas Lori was hired as an accounting clerk on August 13th, 1984, and became the utilities billing technician on February 1st, 1996, and whereas Lori moved to the position of accounting technician on June 20th, 2001, a position she has held until the present time. Whereas Lori's unwavering commitment and dedication to the city of Fergus Falls has made her an incredible asset to the city for almost 4 decades. And whereas Lori's attention to detail, financial acumen, and professionalism have ensured accurate and timely reporting and earned her the respect of her coworkers. Now therefore be it resolved by the city of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, to accept the resignation of Lori Besky and thank her for her 38-plus years of dedicated service as an employee of the city of Fergus Falls. The above resolution was offered at a regular meeting by Councilmember Jim Fish, was seconded by Councilmember Krista Hagberg, and was adopted by the following vote. Roll call.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hagberg.
Yes.
Kwame.
Yes.
Hoover.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. Before we say thank you to Lori, I'm going to call on Finance Director Bill Sonmore.
Well, on behalf of her department and the other city employees, really proud to have worked with Lori all these years. Don't do that, it's going to be hard. We struggled just a little bit, but really loved working with Lori and so proud to have worked with her. And she's taught Sandy and I a lot. So thank you so much.
thank you all for the opportunity to work for the city all these years. It was absolutely marvelous. Met and worked with many, many wonderful people, so thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Under the consent agenda, there are 6 items this evening in our packet, and Lynn is putting a copy on the board. If anyone would like to remove any of those items and discuss them individually, we can do that. Hearing none.
Move to approve it?
Resolution to approve the consent agenda as presented. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brent. Roll call, please.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Yes. That resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, tonight we have the second reading of ordinance 35, 8th series, dealing with the sale of THC products. This has been to committee. It's been discussed. We'll need a roll call at some point. If anyone has any comments on the resolution, the ordinance, roll call, please.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes. The resolution is approved. Item number 2 would be a motion adding a $500 THC product sales fee to the 2023 fee schedule. I'll call on our city administrator, Andrew Brumsack.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Council members, within the ordinance you just approved that calls for a $500 license fee on an annual basis for businesses selling the THC products, and this is just a motion memorializing that into the fee schedule.
Thank you for that. We can do that through a motion. Someone would like to offer that?
I'll make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony.
I'll second.
Thank you. Caroline, any discussion, questions for staff? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item number 3 is a resolution opting out of Otter Tail County THC product sales moratorium, and that would need to be required through a resolution. That's the point of the ordinance, is having the ordinance in place to allow us to do that.
I got a question on that. If we've adopted one, the county adopted that if you didn't have an ordinance in place by February 1st, then, so why, I was just wondering, why do we need a motion to say we're opting out when by the action we've just taken, we've actually opted out?
Yeah, Your Honor, Councilmember Hicks, in the language of the county's moratorium, it says cities that opt out must opt out by resolution.
Right, okay.
So we're just meeting the requirement of the county moratorium.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So with that, if someone would like to offer that resolution? Thank you. Brent?
I can second it.
Second, Anthony? Roll call, please.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
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 Hager.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under presentation of claims, tonight we have claims in the amount of $596,584.46. If there's any questions, we will direct them to our city finance director.
I have a couple of questions.
Right?
It's all out for the resolution to pay the bills.
Someone like to second that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Krista. Please, Anthony, go ahead.
I'm just curious on, we obviously are getting to see more and more of the Bayer Body Shop for towing. What happens to those kind of like fees? How do we get reimbursed on them? Towing from Bayer buyers?
Sure.
Buyers.
Yeah.
Body Shop.
So, when the police department tows a car, the buyer's towing will bill the city. And then before we return the car to the owner, we will recoup the complete tow bill, plus we have some additional impound fees and other fees. So I can't say that we get 100% of the funds returned, but I would say we're probably in that, 95% recovery of the fees.
But we still have the car if they don't come and pick
Yes,
it up.
yes. And then we do have to send a notice. I believe it's 45 days. They have a chance to respond to the notice that we send, and if they don't respond within the 45 days, we in turn sell the vehicle. And even if the vehicle is salvage, typically it's, the salvage price is enough to recoup the tow bill. So
Thank,
99.9% of the time, we're making the city whole through collections.
Thank you, Chief.
then I had another couple of
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, please do.
I see Ottawa Power Company 2023 rental parking spaces. Is that us paying them or them paying us?
Nope, that's us paying them for the lot across from City Hall to the east. Otter Tail Power actually owns that, and we then lease that for public parking.
Right, thank you. Then, my other question was that I believe we have new, under the Big Wood, is it possible that we could get a presentation from the Big Wood events manager so that we can meet and greet them?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. And then we'll, give you a little history of where we're at and where we're hopefully going.
That concludes my questions.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Anthony. So we have a resolution and a second. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Anderson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yep, thank you.
Fish.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Lonnie.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes. That resolution is approved. There are no reports from administrative officers. There is no old or unfinished business. There is no new business to come before this body. So with that, I guess we would look for a motion to adjourn, sign and die.
I'd make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony.
I would second.
Thank you, Jim. Before we call for that vote, I just want to recognize a couple council members who will be ending their service this evening. I just want to say to Justin Arneson, Caroline Gustafson, Krista Hagberg, and also to Scott Kwame, who will be continuing his service. The election of 2018, I believe, will go down in history as one of the most consequential in the history of our community. If you look at the amount of work that this body has done over the last 4 years by working together, I would put that work against any 4-year period in the history of our community. So from me personally, I think from the entire community, thank you for your service. And with that, I would call for a vote. All in favor of adjourning, sign a die. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned. I believe the new council members, if they would come down here, our city attorney is going to swear them in.
No, you're fine.
Raise your hand. Yeah, so we'll have you each sign and you turn that both when you're done.
All right, I have your attention. Does anyone want to come and take pictures or anything like that? I will step out of the way. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. I will support the Constitution of the United States. I will support the Constitution of the State of Minnesota. I will support the laws and ordinances of the City of Fergus Falls. I will faithfully discharge the duties of City Council member to the City of Fergus Falls, State of Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability. So help me God. Congratulations. And I'll get out of the way. And then you guys can I didn't follow. It's okay.
Sign the name in the chair. This is Ron's chair.
You know, all kinds of good stuff in that drawer. I know. Well, these children. I have a child who told me. Of course.
All right, and with that, we have our new council sworn in, and I would ask roll call, please. We will call this meeting to order. Please, Lynn.
Kramer.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Rachels.
Here.
Hicks.
Here.
Fish.
Here.
Joe.
Here.
Kwame.
Here.
Rupert.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item of business would be a motion to adopt the rules of procedure for City Council, City Code 31.27.
I'd make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Scott. We have a motion and a second. If there's any questions, we'll direct them to city staff. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next item would be a motion appointing the 2023 acting mayor.
I would nominate Scott Kwame.
We have a motion nominating Scott Kwame.
Second that.
We have a second for Scott Kwame. Any questions, considerations before we vote on that motion? Yes, Laura,
Can I
please.
nominate Anthony?
We have a motion and a second,
Okay.
so if we vote this motion down, then we would entertain a new motion, so.
Okay.
So right now, there's a motion for Scott Kwame and a second. If we vote against that, then we would be able to nominate a new
Sure.
member. Clear? So all in favor of the motion to nominate Scott Kwame as the acting mayor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. But yeah,
Do we have a raise of hands to see the?
do we have a?
In favor.
Who voted in favor, say aye.
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 One, two.
Didn't vote. I didn't think I should.
So we have Jim, Scott.
Jim Scott. Well, what do you want to call me?
It was 4-4, correct?
4-4.
Do I break that tie? Do we,
Was there four?
is there 4?
Did you not vote, Scott?
I didn't think I should.
So it's 4-3 then?
So that is 4-3.
It's 4-3, the motion carries. If it's 4-3, correct? Yep. It was 4-3 in favor, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Interesting. Never throw your vote away, Scott. You never know when you're gonna need it. Next item would be a motion approving the 2023 Mayor's Council appointments. There's a list in front of you. Should I just read through these? I'll read through these. It's a short list. Board of Equalization would be Laura Jobe from Ward 1, Scott Kwame, Ward 2, Al Kramer, Ward 3, and Scott Rachels, Ward 4. Representative of Business Development would continue to be Anthony Hicks. Fire Department Relief Association would be a committee consisting of the fire chief, the city administrator, and Brent Thompson. Fire Department Trust Fund would be the fire chief and Scott Kwame. Representative to the golf boards, Jim Fish. Representative to the Hockey Association is Scott Rachels. The Investment Committee would be the city administrator, finance director, assistant finance director, certified financial planner, and Councilmember Al Kramer. Legislative Committee would be the mayor, the city administrator, Councilmember Roofer, and Councilmember Hicks. Representative of the PEG Access Board is Scott Kwame. Personnel Committee would consist of Laura Jobe, Councilperson Laura Jobe, and Councilperson Jim Fish. Representative to the Senior Citizens Board would be Councilman Brent Thompson. Tax Levy Committee would be the city administrator, the mayor, Councilor Jobe, and Councilor Rachels. Representative to Visit Fergus Falls would be Al Kramer. And representative to the West Central Initiative Economic Development District would be Councilmember Tom Roofer. And we can approve that slate with a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Scott.
I'll second.
Thank you, Anthony. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item number 6 would be a discussion on a resolution approving a state bonding request, and I'll call on our city administrator, Andrew Bremseth.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Council members, new council members, welcome. I look forward to working with all of you. The newly appointed legislative committee, myself, the mayor, Tom Roofer, and Anthony Hicks met last Friday, and we were going to try not to have any business this evening and jump right in, but the time is of the essence on this, so we figured we would throw you guys a big item on your first agenda here. So bear with me as I explain this, but as some of you may know, the city of Fergus Falls was included in the bonding bill that stalled out at the state legislature last year. The bonding money that was set aside for the city of Fergus Falls is related to the project downtown Phase 2, which would have infused $1 million of non-local money into that project. Over the last several weeks, MMB, Minnesota Management and Budget, has been reaching out asking how we want to handle that bonding request because they plan to try to advance that bonding bill during this legislative session in 2023. I informed staff at MMB that we actually moved forward with that project. We've awarded the contract, and the response that I got from staff at MMB was, well, do you want to amend that request and try to accomplish something else with state funding? So with that as the backdrop for the conversation, the legislative committee met last week to talk about whether or not we wanted to bring a recommendation forward to this council this evening. And one of the things that MMB talked with me about was trying to tie whatever new project we come up with into the project that was in the bill. So we're not getting too far out there so that we'd still fall in line with the legislative intent, but also the governor's recommendation. And so, again, with that being the backdrop to our conversation in our meeting, we came up with a few things that we thought the council could consider sending down to St. Paul for a potential funding request. I will say we have the Phase 2 project is about $5.2 million. There's no state funding in that. That consists of local bonding, a few federal dollars, and then local city dollars, and $2 million worth of private fundraising. So $5.2 million that we have that we could use as matching funds for any state bonding that we would receive going forward. So generally, state bonding requests are a 50-50 match. So having that match in hand makes it so if we were to receive funding, that's already accounted for on the city's end, and that would be funding that we could then use with no barrier or no match required beyond what we've already committed to Phase 2. So just real quickly here, we're looking at a couple of different things. $1.2 million for the acquisition of the river buffer parcel on the dairy site from the Fergus Falls Port Authority. $1.3 million for rail crossings on Broadway Avenue and St. Andrew Street relating to the redevelopment of the dairy property. $1.5 million for trail and amenities through the dairy property on the river buffer parcel that the city would acquire from the Port Authority. And then the committee also wanted to include $1.2 million towards the Renaissance of Old Smoky, which would include magic carpet lift, groomer, snowmaking equipment, and a warming house as we look at recreational opportunities. So again, $5.2 million. We have the 50-50 match with our Phase 2 commitments locally. And I will say that if we move forward with this request, it's certainly up to the council as to whether or not they want to entertain this. This would not preclude us from asking for another bonding request or for any other legislative funds during this legislative session. This is different in the sense that they want to replace the existing language within the bill that's out there. And the reason the timing is of the essence is that MMB and the governor's office would want to include this in the governor's proposed bill, which is going to go out in the next couple of days. And it's not fatal if we're not in that bill, but it certainly helps, especially with the Democratic Party being in control of all the branches. It's very likely they'll take advice from the governor as they craft this bill during this legislative session. So a little bit unique in that regard compared to what we've seen the last handful of years. So that's what we're proposing. Also, the legislative committee, when we met last week, we talked about wanting to host a upcoming work session with the council to discuss legislative priorities of the city, other potential funding requests as we look at the state legislature with an $18+ billion surplus, and then a deep conversation about roads, as that's obviously top of mind for everybody. So I'll stop there. Councilmember Hicks or Roofer or the mayor, if they want to add anything, they certainly are welcome to, but that's the conversation we
I
had.
think you did a good job, but Anthony, would you?
I think as we move forward on the dairy property, we were obviously unable to get the LCCMR grant from the state. So, one of the reasons that kind of trying to use this matching dollars would be obviously to replace that funding to acquire that property, and rail crossings to make that property feasible for development. We really need, we have to have new rail crossings, and this is an opportunity to pay for that. So I think, this is one way of leveraging the dollars that we spent downtown that, as Andrew said, are unencumbered. So I think it's a good idea, and then bringing back Old Smoky to life would be a bonus.
You want to offer a resolution?
I will offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Someone like to second that?
Second.
Tom, discussion, council? Scott?
Will this affect the RFP for the Port Authority, Anthony? Like, it means you're the president of it?
Not
I mean, is that money going to be included, or if we have a buyer coming in between now and end of session, will that include, or will you have that RFP before, I should say, before the end of session?
I mean, we were looking at the first Port Authority meeting of actually reviewing the RFP and pushing it out.
Okay.
So
That was just a question. Thank you.
Brent?
And I noticed that that's 1.3, and they initially went for 1 million on that property. Does that change the size of the chunk, or is it going to remain the same?
That's a good question, Your Honor. Councilmember Hicks, it matches the parcel that has been contemplated previously.
Okay.
And $1.2 million is more than supported by the appraised value, and it allows us to make up some of that shortfall that we have on the property. So, Bill is certainly excited to see that number go up from a million.
Come in somewhere.
Thank you. Scott, thank you. Brent, any questions? Roll call, please.
Kramer.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hicks.
yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Kwame.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
And I got one other piece of business that I want to just bring up. It came to my attention that one of our council members is under an administrative hearing, and I wonder if the Charter Commission can look into what, it must be like a rules of code of conduct thing. Do we have to do anything? There's a public hearing on January the 18th regarding what happened during the election cycle.
Thank you, Anthony. Ralph, do you have any?
I don't have any thoughts on that. As the Charter Commission weighing in on conduct of I mean, there is a process for public review of a council member through a recall process. As of public hearing on the 18th, I know nothing of that.
Right.
The Campaign Finance Disclosure Board, I think, is the one that handles the complaints, and I think it's a state body that.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay.
That oversees that, and they're the ones that initiate any investigate. I believe that would be the body that takes complaints and oversees any.
That was brought to my attention. I was unaware of any public hearing on that. Then that's usually a process that's handled by the state administration, and there's a process for reviewing complaints, campaign complaints that are made by the public. And usually what happens is there's an administrative law judge that's appointed that reviews and comes back with a determination whether the complaint sets forth sufficient facts to warrant a further hearing, further deliberations on. So I don't have any indication that there's been any formal adjudication by the administrative law judge.
So we don't need to necessarily do anything until that hearing takes place and a ruling is made?
To what extent it's public, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's probably a public request that can be made to the Department of Administration through, once the administrative law judge makes a decision. My understanding is that when a complaint is made, the administrative law judge has a relatively very short period of time to make a first determination whether the complaint sets forth sufficient facts for further deliberations or further review. And if the administrative law judge comes back with a opinion that they believe that potentially campaign laws have been violated, the administrative law will then give the person who is the subject of the complaint an opportunity to respond, and then they'll either probably have set forth some type of a hearing before the administrative law judge. So I don't know if I was aware that there was a complaint made, but I don't know where they're at in that process.
I mean, obviously, I was told it's gone to, there's going to be a public hearing about it. So.
Thank you. Any other business to come before the council? If not, we're adjourned.